Hi everybody, Bobby Ogilvy, project manager and professional coach. So today's question, when is the right time to get equity financing? So first of all, I'll just clarify what equity financing is. That's when you're selling some portion of the stocks, the shares in your business to get financing, to get money in, right? And normally they talk about it in four stages, which is seed financing, the small amount you get early on, just to help you, and it's probably have quite a weak valuation, and then Series 1, Series 2, Series 3. You'll sometimes hear them referred to as a series, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, or Series A, Series 2, Series A, Series B, Series C. It's all the same thing, right? So about equity financing, just in general, some high level things, which are the more you've been in business, the longer you've been in business, the more established your product is, and the more it's been deployed to market, it's been validated, and the more you have existing customers and existing success to talk about, the less risk there is, right? So the better valuation you can get. Versus the earlier on, the weaker these points all are, the worse your valuation is. A lot of startups now might literally have zero customers and have no product, and they're doing seed or stage 1 financing, and they might want seven figures, right? Yeah, that can be a hard ask, and it certainly depends on the situation. So here in Atlantic Canada, yeah, that would not happen, right? Even established ones, you would, like, I myself am surprised when I hear in the region someone that was able to do seed financing above $500,000. That's very rare. And then your valuation gets better as you go on, right? So that, before you might have had to sell, I don't know, let's make game screaming numbers, 10% of your stock just to get that $500,000, right? But then once you do your Series 1, maybe you only have to sell 5% of your stock to get, I don't know, 2 million, something like that, right? Better deal, right? And it keeps going on like that because each step you've shown progress. Okay, so back to this initial question. When should you do equity financing? And the answer is when you need it to grow. This also means that you, in terms of the founders, the executives running this startup, need to have a clear sense of what I'll call milestone growth. And so implicit in that are kind of bound up two ideas. Overall, what are the areas I want to grow in? And the milestone part of it kind of gets into this sequencing, this contingency of saying, well, first this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens. And you need to be able to hop from each to the next. And part of that is being able to show value from one step to the next. But that's being able to communicate what your plan is about how this will roll out. And basically see how steps of your progress will also link to steps of financing in, which will allow, again, future growth in operations. So when might one want to do seed financing? When they need money to get a product going. If you don't have a product and you need money for it, seed financing will be the way to go. You still want to have a clear sense of what that product will be. If there's anything like mock-ups or prototypes, all the better. And you certainly want to have some amount of market validation. You want to show that there's enough of a market that it's worth building this thing, right? The ICT is probably a little bit easier because in that sense, dev work isn't as expensive as, let's say, building some new engineering type, product, right? On the other hand, products which have a physical hardware piece, particularly something technologically advanced, they are a bit more disruption proof in that they're harder to replace than just an ICT algorithm, right? When might you do stage 1? When you're really trying to roll out to market. Basically, you now have a product that works, and you now need to get money so you can start selling it, right? And then, in some sense, that is the same answer for stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. It's different, like it's basically to say, I'm at this size stage, but if I get this injection of capital, I can go to this size stage, right? So it might be you get that injection of capital, and then 1 to 2.5 years later, you get your next round and another injection. It lets you grow bigger and bigger and bigger, and that's great. One slightly cautionary point I'll mention. Les McEwen frames this very well, but there's a classic OD problem, or I should say OD strengths and weaknesses, organizational design, as an organization goes through different sizes. They have different strengths, and they have different gap issues they're facing and really trying to overcome. But Les McEwen is great in pointing out that it does require a fundamental shift in organization and culture. And if you don't want that, all the better, right? So, good use case would be to say you might have a creative agency which functioned with, 10 to 20 people, or like some boutique engineering or consulting shop, right? And it could be that you have some opportunity to grow where, listen, we could become a 50 or 100 person or 200 person company. Let's say a 200 person company, but it requires opening new offices in half a dozen new cities across North America and EMEA. Okay, good. But that's going to fundamentally, and then Les McEwen's kind of cautionary point would be to say, that's good if you want that, but if that's not what you want, don't bother with it. Organizations at different sizes are good at different things, and if you don't want that situation, all the better. I mean, how many startup people, you guys have probably heard of this as well, right? They like that smaller startup scene, they like founding it, they like growing it, but once it gets bigger, once it gets to a few hundred people, or maybe once they get acquired, they're not interested anymore, right? There's a use case here of a company that was acquired by IBM, right? And IBM's a huge company, and this is actually pretty typical how large enterprise companies will operate. They don't do so much innovation themselves. They might go through a dozen acquisitions per year, essentially buying up new tech and products. Or some of them are almost like talent acquihires. They're hiring a good pool of talent, right? But mostly it's products, and then they take this cool niche product they found, and because they're in this global enterprise organization like IBM or whatever, they can sell it all over the world. And so, both parties in some sense win. But now this kind of small company, which might have been a few hundred people, got eaten by this multi-thousand person company, right? Different organization, different situation. They start to implement different processes. It's a whole different shift. And if you liked being in that 100 person company and you don't like being in a 10,000 person company, well, then don't be in a 10,000 person company. All that to say is simply that growth is good if you want it, and certainly earlier on growth is better. And then once you're up and rolling and have revenues coming in, then those kind of founders and executives might be looking at questions of equity financing and acquisition. And then the question becomes maybe more one of what kind of organization am I interested in? And I should say what's good for the business might be different than what that founder wants. The founder might say, yes, the right answer is to get acquired by this person. The right answer is to do my Series C and get an injection of, 40 million and go through this big growth thing. But they might also say, but I don't want to be the person heading that up, right? I guess I know this is a bit of a longer video, but one other notion I'll put out there is there's something called succession, which is essentially that a CEO, the leader of a company, is subtly or not so subtly kind of forced out or needs to be replaced. And the more shareholders you have, which are the more variety of people you have on your board, the more likely that is to happen. That's why a lot of founders are also concerned about selling equity, because it's actually giving up bits of power and decision making, right? And I think part of that might have to do with these founders might have strengths in some areas, or might have good vision, but they're maybe not used to running global, let's call it, sales organizations or global organizations, global operations in general. And I think, and so, it may actually be a skills gap kind of issue, but it can also be just the issue of, okay, well, listen, it requires a different set of skills to operate the organization on this level, so we need someone who's more skilled for that, right? So that would be another good reason why you might not want to do equity financing, because if you want to stay at that smaller company and you don't want to eventually have successorship, well, you know what? Why don't you, play in the sandbox you're happy with, right? All right, that's a little bit off point, but hopefully that gets you a sense of how equity financing is coming into play at these different stages and how you might approach that. So again, I'm Bob Ogilvy, project manager and professional coach. I'll talk to you guys soon.